Has it ever happened to you that you had an idea and wanted to validate it, but didn't have the means to and felt constrained? If yes, then I think you have made the right choice by joining this session. So, today we are going to talk about how you can build MVPs or minimum viable products using no-code tools. So, a quick intro about me. I work as a product manager at Razorpay. I also happen to run a cohort-based course at on a platform called Airtime, and I've previously worked in the mobility space at Bounce, which was a dockless scooter rental startup based out of Bangalore. So yeah, that's about me. And the agenda for today's session is that we'll first get into no code, what it really is. I mean, the term is self-explanatory or not, its possibilities and limitations. Then we'll go into the no code stack and how to choose the best no code tools. Like if you just search, you'll find so many no code tools out there. How do you even choose which one to use? And then we have two interesting case studies from Razorpay and Bounce, which I'll talk about. But before we dive into no code, let's talk a bit about what MVPs are and how do you even think about building an MVP and what are the things that you should keep in mind while designing and building an MVP. So, first of all, what is an MVP? Um, a product just enough to be used by your potential customers to help you validate your hypothesis. What it is not, it's not a product with plethora of features demonstrating your whole idea. So you don't have to go all in while you're building an MVP. Just need enough which will help you validate your idea. And what do you measure when you are building an MVP? You measure intent. The idea is to launch something quickly to your potential customers and see are they even intending to use it, how they are using it, and is it something useful or solving a meaningful problem for them. Um, let's take an example. Let's say you want to launch a SaaS product which would help sales team work efficiently. What you can do is, during your very initial days, you can just launch a landing page with a wait list for that product and see how many people are even showing interest. Do they take that pain to go through your landing page and register through that waitlist form? That shows that indicates intent to use the product. So what you measure again while building MVPs is intent. And what matters the most when you are building a MVP? It's velocity. You can't spend too much time to validate your hypothesis. When you have finally come down to one hypothesis, you would quickly want to validate it or see if it's not true, then move on to something else. You cannot spend months or years just working on that one hypothesis when you haven't even built full conviction. So velocity really matters because I think if everything works in your favor, you might have strong conviction and validation for your hypothesis. But if it doesn't, like I said, you should move on and test a new hypothesis. So velocity is something that matters, and um, velocity is one of the core reasons why you should be using something like no-code tools. A lot of people might tell that you should use no-code tools because you may have lack of engineering expertise, but that is just one of the reasons. The main reason, and I think the more benefiting reason to use no-code tools is the amount of velocity it gives you while shipping things. And you will see how towards the later part of this session. So finally, moving on to what is no-code. Um, you visually code to build applications, and code is produced in the background when you do that. So it doesn't mean that your website or application is without working without code. What it means is that you don't have to write that code. Code is being produced in the background and you're visually doing it. For example, by dragging and dropping. So that is what no code really means. Um, And what's the like overarching idea of this whole no code space? It is that if we can have code that converts speech to text, why can't we have code that writes code for you? So that is why we have seen this entire no code industry rising so much. Today we have so many no code tools which just doesn't help you build your side project, but build proper scale projects that you can use at enterprise level companies. So that is how much we have advanced. And what are the possibilities of no code? So everything you see on this slide, right? Landing pages, setting up automations, building internal tools, building a chatbot, a CMS, a newsletter, everything is possible using no code. And then you might wonder what cannot be done with no code. Why do we need code at all if all this can be done by no code? Because one of the main limitations of no code is very high customizability. For example, like I earlier stated, if you're building a SaaS application, you it would be very customized to a particular problem statement or a use case. Building that level of customization today is not possible using no code. However, it's again debatable how much customizability is possible or not. So again, it depends from use case to use case. But like really high customization is one of the limitations of using no code, um, which makes it perfect for MVPs because you can let that level of customizations go for let it go for the MVPs, because you're just testing a high level hypothesis. And when should you use no code tools? Um, Obviously, when you have lack of engineering bandwidth, when you need to ship things with high velocity, and while building MVPs. So before I proceed, I would love to know in chat if you all have used any no-code tools, and if you can just put the names of the tools you have used. Would love to understand what if you have used any of the tools.
We have a lot of, I would say, replies on the chat. People are talking about Airtable, Webflow, Bubble, Figma,
Nice.
Zapier, Glide, yeah, Retool, in fact.
I already see two of my favorite no-code tools mentioned, which is Retool and Webflow. I use them the most, and you'll come to know soon why they are my favorite tools. Okay, someone mentioned Glide. Abhishek mentioned Glide. Glide is also super awesome. Couple of folks mentioning Retool. Atul mentioned Zapier. Zapier is super cool for setting up automations and connecting multiple applications with each other. Okay, AppSheet. Uh, Manish, I thought you don't use no-code tools. It's super interesting to see that you are also into no-code. So I see a lot of people in the audience already into no-code tools. That's awesome. Yes, Anuj, WordPress is also no-code. Cool. Really glad to see that the audience is already so much into no-code and you all already know what it is. Um, Moving on. So this is the no-code stack, right? And just to mention as a caveat, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just to give you a sense of how these tools are categorized and what kind of tools are available today. So some of you mentioned Webflow, which is used for building website. Some of you mentioned Retool, which is used for building internal tools. Then Zapier for setting up automations or just connecting two apps together. Then even Google Sheet is actually a no-code tool because it's a no-code database. So there are different categories of no-code tools. And how to choose a no-code tool is the answer to this question really depends on what you are building. So it's not like there is one no-code tool today that will help you build everything. Like there is no such no-code tool. Um, you would have to figure out based on your problem statement that what fits best, or you might also have to use multiple no-code tools together. The beauty of these tools is that they integrate really well with each other. Like a Webflow would work really well with Zapier, or Google Sheet would work really well with Retool. So all these companies, all these products have come together, set up out of the box integrations, which is definitely worth exploring. So the right framework to choose the no-code tool that you should be using is by starting to define what is your problem statement, what you are building, and then go to go online and search that what are the no-code tools available under that category. Once you do that, you'll see that, let's say if you're building a website, you'll see that you have so many options. You have Card, you have Webflow, you have Wix. How would you choose which is the best one for you? One recommendation that I always give is that choose the one which has the best community support, because if you get stuck, you will always have a community who would give you answers to your questions. And more than that, you would also have already answered questions. So finding resources, finding videos around developing using that no-code tool would be very easy. Using a no-code tool, new no-code tool is not something I recommend because the community support wouldn't be that high, and existing resources around that particular no-code tool would be limited. So the safe choice is to go ahead with something that has some tool which has a great community support and has multiple people evangelizing it and using. Cool. Now we move to my most interesting part of this session, which is a case study on how Razorpay Rise was built using no-code tools in just 3 days. So, a specific team at Razorpay, which is called Razorpay Rise, which I work at, uses no-code tools and is entirely built on no-code today. Razorpay Rise is basically a startup program for early stage founders where we support them with company incorporation, add them to a founders exclusive community, and also provide them credits across various tools like AWS, Canva, Notion, etc. And we had launched this project or product in a closed beta. And again, we wanted to see what is the initial response we get and measure some early signs that this is something founders want. And hence, we decided to build everything using no code tools. So we had one engineer who was working on the no code platform. We had one no code tool and we built one fully functional application in just 3 days. And how did we do it? We used Webflow. So let me show you what we actually built. So this is Razorpay Rise's website. This is register now option to register for our program. As you see, these little interactions. We have a testimonial section. We talk about all our offerings. This is about company incorporation. This is about the tools we offer. Um, these are some of the tools mentioned for which we offer credits. And here we talk about the community. Now, if you see, this entire thing is built using Webflow. And Webflow, I know some of you are already familiar with Webflow, but for those who don't know, you can build beautiful landing pages using Webflow. You can build CMS powered blogs. You can also build e-commerce sites using Webflow. Let me show you how Webflow's dashboard looks like. So this is my personal dashboard. I have 3 live projects right now. So I was running this course called Tech for PMs, where I was helping product managers who come from non-technical backgrounds learn about tech that they need to that they need to know to function as a product manager. and I had created a landing page for it using Webflow. So this is your interface where you can design websites. And if you see on the left side, there is a panel called elements. You can just pick any of these elements, place them, and then from the right panel, you can actually style them. So here, for example, this is a button. I can style the button as I want it to be. So the text color of the button right now is something like a purple. I can let me just change it to green, right? If you had to do the same thing using code, trust me, you would have had to write at least 4 to 5 lines of code. You would have to go through the entire process of deploying it, because even if it's one single change, you have to go through the entire deployment process. And it would have taken minimum 20 minutes. So what I did in just a matter of seconds would have taken you so much more time. And not just this, even if you want to, there's an option called CMS where you can store data. This is very useful for creating blogs. You this is And then there is an e-commerce option as well, which you can use if you want to set up a e-commerce site. So Webflow makes it really simple to build such pages, and also reduces the time to ship. And like I have been repeating throughout the session, that velocity is something that really matters. So yeah, that's about Webflow. Going back to my presentation, the second case study is to tell you that you just can't build MVPs using no-code tools, but you can do a lot more. So at Bounce, we built our entire internal tooling system without a dedicated engineer. And we were able to do this by using a no-code slash low-code tool, more like a low-code tool, because it might, for some use cases, it might require some amount of coding. So we achieved 10x speed using one low-code tool, and we built 80 plus internal dashboards. So let me tell you a story. At Bounce, customer support was really important for a company or a service like Bounce, because it was something very unconventional that Bounce was doing, having keyless scooters which are completely operated using your phone and Bluetooth is not something Bangalore had seen before. So it was completely new, and often users had a slight learning curve, and they needed that kind of help. So it was very important to empower our customer support team to be able to help those customers when they were stuck while trying to start a trip or end a trip. But like any other company, we didn't have, like, you can never hire enough engineers, especially if you are in a startup. You can never have abundance of engineers because there is so much to do. You will always be short of bandwidth, and so was our case. We didn't have enough bandwidth, and that is when one of my colleagues, he discovered Retool and brought it into the organization, and I think that has been one of the best decisions we took. We were able to ship so many dashboards in just a couple of months, and we did it using Retool. And um, not not just the product team, but it also saved time for the engineering team, because what Retool does is it helps you solve for the front end engineering. So it will help you create dashboards without front end engineering effort. The only effort that would go is in building the APIs or integrating the database. That is the only engineering effort it would take. So Retool basically beautifully solves the front end engineering problem. And let me show how Retool looks like. For folks who mentioned they have already used Retool, I'm sure you're familiar. But this is the dashboard. You can create apps over here just by clicking create new. And you can actually um, integrate a lot of resources. So as you can see, you can integrate a Postgres DB, you can set up Firebase, you can integrate with Google Sheets. In fact, for all my personal use cases, I use Google Sheets because I wouldn't have like a Postgres DB or SQL DB, right? One of the apps I built was an estimation fact sheet. Pretty simple. As PMs, you often get questions around guesstimates, like estimate how many red cars are there in Delhi, right? And there are some basic stats that you might have to know to build a foundation of your estimation. Obviously, they are trying to see, the interviewer is trying to see what kind of framework you use, but having at least a fair sense of what are the basic data points, like India's population, world's population, is important. So here you can just filter by category, something like digital. So you can see smartphone users in India, life expectancy and age. You can see what is the expectancy of a female in India. Along with this, you can also enter the, if you want, you if so this is a public URL and I've shared this with people. So people can, I'm also trying to crowdsource data. So they, if they know about a category and um, a question, they can enter the question and the value and submit it. And then it would get added over here. So this is like a simple form and a simple table coming from a Google Sheet data source. Um, it took me about 45 minutes to build this. And I can testify that if I would have done the same thing using code, I would have taken at least 2 to 3 days or even more. And maybe I'm just underestimating the tech effort, but I think I would have taken more than that. So at now coming back to the Bounce case study, what did we use Retool for at Bounce? We built our finance internal tools. So we built a tool to request for a refund and process refund. So our internal team, our customer support team, could raise a request and process the refund using this tool. Earlier, it was all being managed on random Google Sheets floating around the org. And obviously, that led to a lot of errors in the refund processing. So, this made the whole process more efficient and accurate. The second thing that we built was marketing internal tools. For example, we created a coupon creation tool where, let's take Swiggy's example because I think most people are familiar with it. Let's say Swiggy created a coupon called Swiggy It. But tomorrow the team wants to create a new coupon, let's say try new. You wouldn't go to your engineering team every time you need to create a new coupon. So that's why we gave the marketing team a self-serve tool that, hey, using this tool, you can keep creating new coupons. You can define what every coupon would do, what is the discount, how many days it is valid for, etc. And then the last and the most important category was CS and customer support internal tools, where we build things like KYC verification tool. So activation was a very important step for a product like Bounce. We wanted to activate as soon as possible, and a major part of activation was to verify a user's KYC. So we wanted to do it fast, but also be accurate so that we don't end up verifying a wrong, document. So that's why taking this off from Google Sheets and putting this on a more structured dashboard was super important. So yeah, these are some of the things that we built at Bounce using Retool. There were a lot more, but these were some of the top used and high impact tools. Okay, and that's the end of my session, but I would love to answer your questions and anything, any, if you're working on any project and if you have questions around it or anything about no code, happy to answer questions.
So we do have a lot of questions streaming on the chat. Aditi, I'll just pick a few of them and then address it to you. All right. So to create a dashboard, which one would be preferred, Google Data Studio versus Retool? This is a question by Pratham.
Okay, so depends on what kind of dashboard you are building, Pratham. If you can elaborate on the use case.
Maybe Pratham, you could unmute yourself and then elaborate more on the question.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
I didn't have any specific a kind of general dashboard for internal as a kind of what parameters shall I consider to use either Retool versus the Google Studio.
Okay, Pratham, like I said, to choose any tool, you have to first define what you are building. Because a lot of tools might have limitations. So knowing what are your expectations from the product or the application you are building is super important to even go ahead and deciding what tool to choose. So, I mean, I could just answer that, hey, I use Retool very frequently, so Retool is best. But that may not be a fair assumption because knowing your end-to-end use case is super important before even choosing the right no-code tool.
Cool. There's this one question by Tushar. Could you share some examples of real-world applications so we can assess the correct tools? And a follow-up question is, at what point or scale do applications built on no-code become irrelevant, so that we'll have to migrate to do a proper development? I think this would be a common question.
Yeah. So, answer to your first question, I think Razorpay, Rise, and even the Retool apps that we built at Bounce are some of the examples I have personally worked on. Common examples are landing pages, internal tools, chatbots, even any newsletter. So right now, no-code tools have I would say extended possibilities, but where it gets limited also depends on your use case. Like I would say you can completely run your chatbot platform using no code today. That level of um, expertise or that level of capability is present with no code tools around chatbot, and you would never have to write a code. But for example, if you're building a SaaS product, like I mentioned, and it has complicated use cases, um, then obviously no code tools is not the right choice. You can just validate your idea, but you cannot uh, like put the whole product using no code tools.
Sounds good. We have a few questions around what are the recommended no-code tools for building web-specific applications versus mobile applications. Any recommendations there, Aditi?
Yeah, sure. So I think for web, like I said, one important thing to always consider is which tool has the best community support, right? And Webflow, Card are the two that I really recommend. If you are building complex landing pages, then go ahead with Webflow. Webflow actually has its own university. So you will find plenty of resources. Even if you get stuck, there are so many YouTube videos that you can watch. Also, a lot of people have developed libraries around Webflow. For example, if you want to add a search filter or if you want to add a pagination to your page, there are external libraries available that you can integrate with Webflow. So a lot of development, community development is being done around Webflow. That is something I would recommend for building web applications. In terms of building a mobile application, I personally don't know about any no-code tool that helps you build really good native apps. However, you can build M sites. For example, you can use Glide, that is powered by Google Sheets. But building a native app is still something that is to be explored.
Thank you. We have an interesting question from Nirnay. Paraphrasing it, is there a way to create products integrating no code with real code? So sort of, is there a way to blend these two environments or methodologies together?
That's a great question, actually. So yes, almost every no-code tool, which is pretty scaled up, offers you this option. For example, within Webflow, you can add a code snippet. You can do things using code. And the whole idea is that if something is not available out of the box, they are giving you an option to do it via code. So that, right, like you use the word blend, that is possible. Even with Retool, that is possible. So yeah, a lot of no-code products let you write custom code, integrate iframes, write JavaScript, integrate with databases.
Yeah, I think we have one more comment recommending Thunkable for mobile applications. I would probably agree with that. I personally built some applications for very specific to mobile via Thunkable. And for web-based applications, I've chosen Webflow.
Yes, Thunkable is also one of the options. We have Adalo, we have Bravo. Yeah, but I think they have a long way to go.
I agree. They're not too simple yet.
Yeah.
So we have one question from Anuj. Maybe we can generalize it. For payments, which no code is good? Probably how I could extend this question is, what tools, what platforms have the most integrations to allow specific functionalities like payments, or yeah, I mean, maybe integration with external API. Endpoints.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm not being biased, but Razorpay is the best. We have a Zapier integration. We have an Integromat integration. We have no-code pages. We have buttons. You can just copy the code snippet and put it on your website. It's as simple as that. So, I mean, I think, Razorpay has always thought how to simplify payments for businesses, and going in that no code direction is one of the ways. So that is why we are building such integrations. So do check out our Zapier integration. It lets you integrate payments very easily, and Zapier connects lets you connect any application with 3,000 plus other applications. So that means you can connect the Razorpay's integration with 3,000 other applications. So do check it out.
They are simplifying payments a lot, I would say.
Yes, that's the intent.
So we have a few more questions. Can we build workflows using no code? I mean, various personas operating a case and resolving it. Maybe you could unmute yourself and elaborate a little bit more on this question.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, my question is like, can we take any example like approving a leave application? Like for example, I open my case and I raise a ticket for approving a leave application, and then it will go to higher management, and that higher management will check whether my leave is within that particular day, 3 or 4 days, so they can approve it. If I'm asking for like 10 days above, it will be routing to other manager. So that kind of workflows, any workflow, we can take any workflow like applying for a job. So it start with the application, and then it will move to the HR interviewer, then it move to the HR, and finally to the finance team approving the salary grades and all. So like that workflow.
Yeah, so you can actually build this using Retool and Zapier. You can set some automation logic, but it would be powered, like if you don't have a existing database, then you will have to use something like Google Sheets, where the escalation statuses are being maintained. that you will have to define escalation statuses that level 1, level 2, and at every level who it is assigned to. And then you can use that data to do the assignment, and you can power all this using Zapier. And on the user side, to give a dashboard to your manager and their manager for approval, you can use Retool. So it's pretty much possible.
Thank you. And thanks for the great session. Yeah.
You're
Sure.
welcome. So a common theme, Aditi, is people have asked what is probably the best free no-code tool versus paid no-code tool. Do you have any recommendations there?
Okay, I think how pricing works for most no-code tools is that they give you a free version, but you cannot host it to a specific domain. For example, you can use Webflow and publish your site, but you cannot host it to a particular domain, let's say pmschool.com, right? So that is how plans work for most. So I think almost every no-code tool has a free plan, good enough to get you started. And once you scale up and you want to do like a proper public launch, is when you can actually choose to pay. So I think every product has like different tiers of pricing. So it's not like, I can recommend you a no-code tool that is completely free. But they have a free version.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have one more question from Anuj again. This probably I'll rephrase it into a broader question. How concerned should one be about security while using no-code tools?
Oh, that's a super question. So again, it depends from tools to tool. Um, let's take example of Retool. So Retool gives you an option to host it on-prem, which means you can host the entire application on your server instead of hosting it on Retool's cloud server, which means that no data will ever be shared with Retool because you have hosted it on-premise in your server, right? So this is one of the ways that it could be secured. But yeah, again, it depends on different tools. For example, Webflow, as far as I know, there is no self-hosting option. You have to host using their cloud. So yeah, you might have to read between the lines what are their data policy.
Absolutely. And just following up with what Aditi has mentioned, most of the time you are building no-code tools as a test environment, right? Or something which is probably not supposed to be an end-to-end detailed or sophisticated application. So at some point, once you validate your hypothesis, validate your product, get the necessary feedback, you would work on the actual application or probably build the application taking into account all the best practices.
Yeah, that actually makes sense.
We have one question from Saurav. What are the top 5 tools you would recommend to learn for an APM aspirant?
Okay, that's a tough question. So I'm thinking how to answer this. Let's say you are working in a consumer facing company, right? You would definitely have use cases to build internal tools. So makes sense to learn how to use Retool. Might also have new initiatives team which is working on trying out new ideas. So knowing card or Webflow makes a lot of sense because it will help you build landing pages super fast. Also knowing how to use Google Sheets to integrate with these products or Airtable, both are really good. I think Airtable is much superior as a database. It lets you do more things. That is something I would recommend. And my favorite one would be Zapier because, like I said, it lets you integrate with so many applications 3,000 plus, to put a number in front of you, and set up automations. For example, for my product, I've set up the entire comms journey using Zapier. Whenever I update something on a Google Sheet, I change a lead status, email is sent, and this whole thing is powered by Zapier. So yeah, to summarize, Retool, Webflow, Airtable, Google Sheets, Zapier is what I'll recommend. I mean, it's not something you need to know as a PM. It just makes you like the smartest PM in the room. So you can always, when your team is saying that, hey, we can't build this because we don't have engineering bandwidth, you can always go to them and say, hey, why not try this particular no-code tool?
Absolutely agree with that, Aditi. And probably a message to all potential product managers out there. The more you tinker around building products yourself, you probably using no-code tools. If you're not coming with a computer science background, the more you would probably stand out in the eyes of potential employers as well. So I mean, as I would say a product person myself, I'd probably look at someone who's gotten their hands dirty building things over someone who just talks about things in a theoretical sense. And
that is so
no-code,
true.
yeah, and no-code really goes a long way in helping you build things faster, so you can demonstrate the end product directly instead of just bits and pieces of what the product could look like via, let's say, a PDF document.
Yeah, totally agree. Plus one to that. Also, yeah, before we take the next question, I would just like to mention one thing. If you folks are building something using no code and are like motivated after this session, please share it with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I would love to go through it, give you a shout out, because I would really enjoy going through what products you are building and help you in whatever way possible. Okay, we can take a few more questions.
All right, so we have one more question from Sai. Is there a tool which provides a suite of features instead of point solutions? Maybe you could unmute yourself, Sai, and then probably elaborate on the question.
Yeah. My question is like, for example, Webflow is used to build only websites, right? But again, if you want to integrate with any third-party systems to get some KYC or whatever it is, then we have to use another integrations tools like Zapier. And if you want to store it in a database, then we want to use something like Airtable or any other database solutions. So instead of using like 4 or 5 no-code tools for a particular functionality, so is there any one particular tool where we can achieve all these things? Like one is creating the website and having these integrations with the third-party services and like these things.
Okay, let me draw a parallel for you, Vinod. Let's talk about code for some time. When you build the same things using code, right, you use a different technology for front end. You might use something like React or Angular. You use a different technology for your database. You might use Postgres. You might use SQL. You might just use a NoSQL DB like MongoDB, right? And then there's a separate technology for backend, right? You might use Ruby, PHP, or just Node.js. So similarly, for no-code tools, every no-code tool is solving a particular engineering problem. Some are solving for databases, some are solving for front end, some are solving for automations, the interaction between front end and back end, right? So that is why in most of the cases you will find that if you want to like build like a full scale end-to-end product, you might have to use more than one no-code tool.
Understood. Yeah. Sorry to ask one more question. Actually, my whole point here is like I have been in this no code, low code space and no code space for the 10 years. So we'll be using applications called Pega and Mendix. So they both claim as low code, no code tools, and they are pretty famous with the enterprises. And recently, like from the past 6 months, I have been seeing a lot of traction for the no code tools like Webflow and all the tools that you have been sharing. So I'm just trying to understand or draw a line between these tools because I'm very much interested to learn these tools, and I'm unable to draw that particular line. What I've been using these days and what happening in this parallel universe of no code.
Okay, I think one way to put this thing is like no code is kind of an evolution of SaaS in a way. Like, all the SaaS products, for example, a CRM is built with a very specific use case, or a lead management system is built with a very specific use case to manage leads. However, you can build the same LMS using probably like a retool. So it's like an evolution of SaaS, giving you more flexibility and customizability while building these products. So that is one way to put it.
Thank you.
Hey, Kushal, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. I did a quick check on what Pega does, Sai. And I believe the way they have built their no-code platform is to target enterprises versus new entrants like Webflow. Probably not Zapier. Zapier is a lot more mature right now. But let's say Webflow or Thunkable is mostly for, I would say, individuals or small groups of people trying things or building things. So maybe there is, I would say, the approach itself is slightly different from age-old no-code platforms, which probably is low-code than no-code, if you think about it, versus Webflow and Thunkable and Zapier, which is mostly do-it-yourself.
Yeah,
And
it's way
self-serve.
more self-serve. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. We have a question from Udit. Might seem too specific, but can we do user management in no-code tools? For example, multiple customers getting their own database view. Maybe Udit, I probably didn't grasp your question completely. Maybe you could unmute yourself and just elaborate a little bit on that.
I think what Udit is asking, can you show user-specific data? Can you set up something like a login sign-up and show them data related to their account and their profile?
Their
Yes.
own activity, maybe.
Yes, that is certainly possible. You can always do that. You can set up a database. You can use no-code solutions like MemberStack, Memberful to set up login and payments and create a member-specific data. You can also use Shopify if you are doing e-commerce and set up stores and show cart-related or user-related data, particularly for a user. So yeah, depending on the use case, it's pretty much possible, and there are many ways to do that.
Cool. We still have about 5 minutes, everyone. We can drop in your questions on chat, or even you could unmute yourself and then ask us directly as well.
I think Anuj has a question. Can a consumer-facing sales experience help in product management? Okay, it's a non-no-code question.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to take that up, Kushal?
Sure, I'll do that, Anuj. So Anuj, can a consumer-facing sales experience help, move into product management? I would probably say, there are a lot of, I would say, there are not a lot of prerequisites from where you come from an experience perspective, more than what kind of specific skill sets you'd want to pick up in order to become a product manager. That would be a deep understanding of business, a reasonably deep understanding of how tech works, even though you might not come from a technical background, you might not know coding, but broadly how technology works, how applications are built, knowing all the intricate parts of what makes an application from the back end to the front end to APIs, etc. An understanding of that definitely helps. And finally, you'll probably have a great understanding of what the user wants. So the user needs technology and an understanding of business. These are probably the most important skill sets, a confluence of which make a great product manager. I mean, and these skills can be taught as well. I mean, we at PM School primarily focus on, helping people transition between roles in our 8-week boot camp, where we focus specifically on first helping you understand with what these skill sets look like and how we can probably obtain it and practice upon it, right? So long story short, doesn't matter where you come from, as long as you understand what skill sets are needed to become a product manager and put in some effort to pick those skill sets and practice a lot, probably you would be, on your way to becoming a product manager or getting an entry level product manager role.
Makes sense.
We have a question from Ankit. What are some good no-code communities or Slack groups like PM School creators of product, etc., which I can join? I don't think we've answered that, Ankit. Is there something, Aditi, you would recommend from a no-code community perspective?
Yeah, let me just share a few links. Just give me a second. So highly recommend OnDeck's no-code fellowship. Do check out MakerPad. Madhuri runs Experian, which is also a great place to learn about no-code. Just let me put the link over here. Yeah, it's called Noco Loco. Then we have a community for learners who join my no-code course. You can check it out here. And then recently, Product Folks has also started a course on no-code, which is, and I'm hearing great things about it. So do check that out as well.
Interesting. Cool. I think these are all great recommendations, Aditi. Folks, do you have any final questions around no code for Aditi while we have, while we have everyone?
Kushal, what are the top 3 tools one should explore?
Yeah. Hey, Tushar. So, like I said, it completely depends on why you want to explore no-code tools. Like, don't explore no-code tools because of the hype. Like, I didn't get into no-code tools because I heard 5 other people doing it. I was looking for a solution to build things because without much of engineering effort and more velocity, and that's how I stumbled upon no-code. So explore only if you have a use case for it, and that use case will tell you, what are the no-code tools you should explore. If you are just trying to, efficiently set up some automations for your personal productivity, you can check out Zapier. If at work you want to ship landing pages faster, you'll check something like a Webflow. So it's all very use case specific. It's like, just don't do it because it's so much hyped right now.
Sure. Got it.
I think one of the things which I would recommend also is to know what the cost benefit would be building something on no code versus probably getting it developed with a team in hand, right? With an engineer at hand. So a lot of factors come into play, as Aditi has covered in the talk as well. which is, what is the use case, right? Who are you serving? What's the scale which you are looking at? How fast do you want to get to market? And how important is it to validate a particular, I would say, feature or a user need before you start actually building it for a bigger audience? So all of these questions are something which you would probably want to ask yourself about before really finalizing whether you would want to go with no code or have a development team build out a product end to end. That said, from a personal opinion perspective, I would say if you have an idea, you want to quickly test it, I think no code is a way to go. And probably it is becoming one of the most important skill sets for product managers.
Thanks.
Plus one to that. Folks, I'm sharing my Twitter handle on chat if you want to connect and talk about no code or share anything that you are working on. Would love to.
Thanks so much for that, Aditi. Folks, again, as Aditi mentioned, do follow, do share, any applications which you build and you want to share it with the world. Please do tag Aditi, tag PM School, tag me as well. We would love to actually, know that this session has been useful for you to at least convince you to get into no code, as well as get your hands dirty with no code, building no code applications.
Yes.
And with that, I would probably end our Star Lecture series talk with Aditi Kothari today. There were a lot of questions general questions around product management. We would love to, I would say, answer these questions. Please do follow our page on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, where we post product snippets, which will definitely help you on your product management journey. Do explore our offerings, which is, and especially if you're transitioning from a role which is not related to product or tech in any way, we have an 8-week live cohort program as well, for which we are still accepting applications for the next cohort, which begins in Feb. We are planning to come up with a lot of exciting self-serve courses in the next couple of months. So please do subscribe to our LinkedIn page to get all the updates. If you have any further questions, you have my email address, which is sent over, which was used to send out the invites. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions. With that, I would say thanks, Aditi, for taking the time out. We really had a really good session. Great engagement by everyone. A lot of good questions coming in. Please do check out our page for our next Star Lecture Series talk.
Thank you so much for having me. And you all were a great audience. Thank you so much.